Hello guys, this presentation is going to be on the subject of quotations. We won't be able to cover it all in this presentation. What I want to do in this one is really just to look again at some of the long-standing ideas that you've had about quotations since you were taught to use them all those years ago. I want to take a fresh look at them, really sort of refresh your attitude. So I'm going to start with a kind of dangerous assertion that quotations are a necessary evil. You have to have them, but actually they are quite cumbersome. And when you're trying to explain something, to have to keep producing these dollops of evidence, it can be quite challenging, and it can make your analysis of something quite difficult. Let's go back to basics. What was it that you were first told about quotations? Do you still remember why you're using them? Well, all of these statements are true. You have to support your argument, and you have to show that you've read the text that you're writing about, and you're not just regurgitating some notes from a revision guide. But I have a hunch that for most people this is one of the most important reasons, that they've always been told to do it, and their English teachers have always gone mad at them if they don't. Well, you're getting to be big boys now, and you don't really need to do everything that you're told, and often, of course, you don't do as you're told. So you need to make your own decision really about why you're using quotations. Your English teacher told you to do it for good reason, probably because you're in a group with a lot of other people who just wouldn't use them at all. So for your English teacher it was a win if you even managed to put some quotes in at all. But now you're doing A-level, and you should be using them because you choose to use them, and you have a valid reason for doing so. I want you to stop and question why you use them. Now, this is a terrible idea. The thought that you might actually just get an extra mark because a quotation was in there. That really sort of shows a misunderstanding of what the quotes are for. They are mandatory, they must be in there, but they're not anything that's going to get you a bonus as such. This is a much better way of looking at it. How do you ensure that the quotations that you use are going to be an asset to you? Well, I'm going to work through an example of a poor use of quotations here. One of the most common errors is to use quotations in a redundant way, to say something that's obvious or say something which you've already said. Now, this is a very dull piece of observation, which to be honest is sort of sub-GCSE level, proving something which is obvious from the plot. What's probably happened here is that this is a person who isn't capable of making a real analysis, and so they're just regurgitating the obvious factors that they've seen in the plot. Now, that whole opening line needs to go in the bin. This person is leading up to something that isn't worth leading up to. You see that print in the red font there. They've set the bar too low for themselves. Why bother to state something which is already obvious, and then why bother to go and prove it when it doesn't need to be proved? It's not in dispute. You should always be thinking analytically in a literature essay, and really the best place to start analysing is in the point itself. The point should be aiming at a how or a why. And so as to keep that momentum rolling through into the development, it's a good idea to keep the quotation as short as it possibly can be, and if possible embed it in the sense of your own sentence. Now, this is a reworked example of what a similar point might look like in the same essay, and look at the differences here. Analytical from the beginning. I'm not saying that you don't have a point evidence development process. You do. But the point itself needs to be quite analytical. And then you really only interrupt yourself very briefly for the quotation before you roll through into the development. And to keep your momentum going, keep that quote short and embedded. Look at the red font here. All of this writing in the red font is analytical. That's what you get marks for, is the analysis. You're writing about what the author wants to do and how he's doing it. And see the quotation now trimmed to the minimum. It's got to be there, but don't let it eat up too much time. You don't want to spend a long time in an exam copying out reams from the text. But it's got to be there. I mean, it is the kind of foundation of what you're trying to say. Now that's an example of a fairly common set of mistakes. It's by no means a full treatment of the whole subject of quotation. And one thing that will need extra treatment is the idea of how to use quotation in poetry essays, where there are more specialised applications of quotes. But these are a couple of fairly useful basic points, I think, to revise at the moment, and I'll try and get you one more film made before we come back to the spring term, and in that one I'll be looking specifically at quoting in poetry essays. I hope you're revising hard. I look forward to seeing you in a week or so.